All right, guys, welcome into another episode of AL.com Recruiting. I'm your host, Simone Eli, alongside Ben Thomas of AL.com, covers high school sports all throughout the state. Patrick Greenfield behind the scenes, running everything with the show when it comes to graphics, producing, video, you name it. Today, we're switching things up just a little bit. We're going to get on the hot topic of big-time recruits leaving schools, especially in their senior year. Ben, it's a trend that we've seen quite a bit. Before we dive deep into that, any recruiting updates on your end when it comes to in-state guys that you've seen?
Yeah, kind of a quiet week. I mean, I think the one noteworthy guy we need to mention, Trevor Hardy from Thompson, safety, committed to Memphis this past week since our last show. This is a guy, a lot of people will remember him, Simone. He's the guy that kicked the game-winning field goal and the miracle comeback for Thompson. But is more of a safety, but he will forever be known for that kick in the final seconds to win that game at Tuscaloosa against Auburn last year. So that's the one noteworthy commitment. I will say I think next week will be big. Omari Kelly, the Hewitt Trustful wide receiver, is scheduled to commit on August 19th. I believe that's Thursday, which ironically is the day that some teams start the season. He is down to 3. I think Auburn is one of those 3. A lot of people have Auburn favored to get him. We've talked about him on the show with Coach Josh Floyd before. So those are just a couple of noteworthy things that happen and that will happen in the next few weeks.
Yeah, I think that it's not really shocking to me that things have slowed down a little bit as fall camp has started for high school student athletes, high school teams all throughout the state. I know I've hardly seen my husband in the last week and a half, so they are very, very busy getting ready for the start of the season. Like you said, Ben, Thursday of next week, Friday is the big day, the 20th. It's hard to believe that it's already right around the corner. And then, of course, the college season soon thereafter in the first weekend of September. But want to jump into our conversation, hot topic of the day, and that's top prospects changing schools, Ben. And you got to feel for some of the schools that they are leaving. Of course, everyone has their different reasons. We're not here to try to pick that apart. But especially these seniors who in their senior season have decided to make a transition elsewhere. Ben, it's quite the list, especially with guys that, we talk about here on the show because they're hot recruits.
Yeah, I mean, Simone, it's just, it happens every year. I mean, your husband being in the coaching industry, he's aware of it. I'm sure you are. I think the weird thing this year is it's just so many high-profile guys and, some high-profile seniors making the move. You can see the graphic that Patrick put together for us there. The bottom 3 are underclassmen. Let's save them for right now. But let's look at a couple of these top guys. Number 1, you can kind of throw out Drew Bobo. I mean, he moved to Auburn because his dad is coaching on the Auburn staff. Mike Bobo is the offensive coordinator. So naturally, he's going to move there. The most intriguing one and the one that just happened most recently, Curtis Perry, who's one of the top, maybe the top uncommitted guy in the state, probably is the top uncommitted prospect in the state. He goes from Park Crossing to Pike Road, 2 Montgomery schools on the east side of Montgomery. I kind of got this was trending toward happening. I didn't exactly know where he was going to end up, but I talked to Coach L.C. Cole at Park Crossing, and he told me that he had not seen Curtis in a while. And then just on last Friday, he enrolled at Pike Road. He's practiced at Pike Road already. Huge addition, Simone, to an already loaded team. I mean, you got Quinshawn Junkins, the running back there at Pike Road, and some other notable prospect. Iverson Hooks is back at quarterback, and they start big game for them on the 20th. They play Class 6A McGill-Tulane down here in Mobile, where you and I reside. So big move there for Curtis Perry.
Yeah, it definitely is. Going to be interesting to see how that impacts Park Crossing. Of course, you have to look at both sides. A huge get for Pike Road, but also Park Crossing having to fill a huge spot on defense up front. How's that going to impact that team moving into the season? Now, a guy that's been there throughout spring, the offseason, throughout his career, and now kind of at the 11th hour, he has made a change. So moving forward to Shemar James, Ben, this is somebody I feel like we talk about every single week because he is constantly in the news. I mean, he's no longer one of our guys because he is now headed to Navarre, Florida after leaving Faith. There's been you've tossed around a lot of different reasons for this, Ben, but definitely going to impact Faith Academy this year.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the stranger ones, I think. I mean, I think we talked about it last week a little bit with Randy Kennedy when he was on the show with us, Simone. Shemar, just kind of abruptly, he came to Media Day in July representing Faith Academy, and just kind of the next week decided that basically it all comes down to he thinks he needs to graduate early.
Sure.
Which you can't. It's hard to do. You can't really do at private schools for the most part. Their scheduling doesn't match up. So he wanted to graduate early. I think probably somebody got in his ear and told him, "Hey, you need to go somewhere where you can graduate early." He looked around locally and on the Gulf Coast. I know he told me personally, "I'm going to go to Blunt, which is in 8 miles in Mobile County." But the problem is, Faith Academy's school zone overlaps Blunt, so he could have gone there, but could not have been eligible to play his senior year. So he ends up last week at Navarre, Florida. Now I haven't talked to him personally. I've exchanged texts with him, so I don't know, if there's some family connection there. I do know that he visited Gainesville. He's a Florida commit. I don't know if we said that or not. One of the top players one of the top former players in our state, I guess.
Yeah.
He visited there. At Florida last weekend, and then abruptly the next couple of days enrolls at Navarre, Florida. Which I don't know if you know that, Simone, but Navarre's not around here in Mobile. So I feel sad for him because hopefully this works out in the long run for him. But for a high school kid who's played a long time with his teammates there to kind of abruptly move and just have to get to know some new teams and coaches, it's kind of a shame. It's a shame for us in the state of Alabama. Because we don't get to see him. We had to drop him out of our A list, which is ongoing right now, our list of top 15 senior recruits in the state. I know I talked to John Garcia Jr., our buddy at Sports Illustrated, and they just revealed their SI 99. And he told me that Shemar would have rivaled Jeremiah Alexander for the top Alabama prospect on their list. But he goes from that list to the Florida list, obviously. I think he was number 18 or something like that. There. So interesting move. We'll see how it works out. I hate that we're not going to get to see him on the field. And like you mentioned, for Faith Academy, it's a huge blow. I mean, they got a veteran coach in Jack French, and they'll be fine. They're in a region where they'll still be expected to make the playoffs. But in my mind, Shemar's loss takes them from a possible state title contender to maybe first, second round playoff team. We'll see.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting for him personally. Like you said, being a senior guy who has played high school football in the state of Alabama for so long, and now he's going, and joining a team that he doesn't know anybody, a conference, a state that he's not familiar with. You hope that the advice that he got, whether that's from college coaches, which if I just had to make an outside opinion is probably where he got that advice so he can enroll early at Florida, was the right thing for him. And ultimately it's a personal decision. We wish him the best of luck. But looking ahead, back to our list right now, Trequon Fegans, Ben, has been an interesting story. Really the Fegans brothers altogether who have been at Oxford for years and have been fantastic, great athletes, good family, is headed to Thompson. A Thompson team that we know is loaded, but if they don't win the 7A title this year, I don't know who's going to. But he's headed over to Mark Freeman's group, and an interesting story, but ultimately that's the best situation for him. Again, a personal decision.
Yeah, I mean, they moved to Alabaster. I mean, and like you said, it's not just Trequon. He's the high-profile guy right now because he's a senior and committed to Miami late last month, as you can see there in the stats that Patrick threw up for us. This really, I mean, talk about, we know that Thompson's already loaded on defense up front with Jeremiah Alexander and Peter Woods, who's a 2023 guy. And then Trequon Fegans, look at their cornerbacks. Trequon Fegans and now Tony Mitchell, who some people have as the state's top prospect for next year. So a great player. He scored the winning touchdown for Oxford against Spanish Fort in 2019 in the state championship game. So he's been a great player. People have known about him for a long time. Mark Freeman told me that he's a guy that can lock down wide receivers if he wants to, but he can also kind of bait quarterbacks into, throwing it his way and maybe doing what you just see there, getting an interception for a pick six as well. So it'll be just another addition for an already loaded Thompson team. And they open, speaking of Oxford, interestingly enough, Simone, they open at Oxford on August 20th.
Well, you know what? You got to love it. High school football in the state of Alabama. It's always some sort of drama, always some sort of rivalry, something to look forward to, something to give us media folks something to talk about as well. So we got to love the storylines there. But Patrick, if you bring back the list, I want to touch quickly on those underclassmen that you had listed for us there, Ben. Who kind of sticks out to you? I mean, for me, it's Ronnie Royal. This is something that we've discussed at length. A huge move for the Alexandria star athlete going to Gulf Shores. I don't think that it's any big secret that has been a hot topic throughout the entire state, with the addition of the new staff down there at Gulf Shores.
Yeah, it really is. Well, Braden Joyner kind of understood there. I mean, he basically followed Keith Etheridge from Oxford to Auburn, where Keith Etheridge is coach now. I do think it's going to be intriguing to see what Ronnie can do at Gulf Shores. I mean, it's certainly not a traditional power team that has struggled in a region, tough 6A Region 1, down here with Spanish Ford and Saraland, Blunt, McGill, Tula, and those type teams. So we'll see. I mean, he did not play in the spring game. He transferred pretty early in the year, but he did not transfer. He was not eligible to play in their spring game against Mary G. Montgomery. So we haven't seen him in competition for Gulf Shore. So, and he's not the only transfer they've had. So we'll see what Mark Hudspeth and those guys can do down there. They open at Alberta on the 20th. So we'll get a quick look there at Ronnie Royal before they're going to have to beat one of those teams, Simone, that I just mentioned to get to the playoffs. So we'll see if they can do that.
Well, Ben, it should be noted that, Hudspeth told us at media days that they have about 8 coaches who only coach high school football, that they're in their field house all day, every day. Obviously a city school, they can do what they want to do. But that's just notable. I mean, there's not many high schools throughout the state that can say they have over half a dozen coaches who don't teach, who simply coach high school football.
Yeah, true. And I mean, if you look at, the 3 top guys, they're all basically known for college coaching. Mark Hudspeth was the coach of the year at Austin P a couple of years ago. Kenny Edenfield was the offensive coordinator at South Alabama. He's now the offensive coordinator for Gulf Shores. And Brian Van Gorder, obviously most people know him that are probably listening to our show, watching our show from his year at Auburn as defensive coordinator, but he's been a lot of other places, including the Atlanta Falcons. So how that translates on the field, we'll have to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Taking a look at, you got James Smith there, Ben. I didn't mean to interrupt you when you're going throughout the list. Anything you wanted to add on him?
Yeah, I mean, I just listen, one I hate, a great player. He was going to vie for maybe the top player in the nation at Carver Montgomery. He's only a junior. He decides to go to IMG Academy, which we've seen before. I mean, it's kind of, IMG Academy is kind of a football factory down there in Florida. So his competition will be great down there for James. Again, it's kind of our loss in the media here in Alabama, Simone, that we won't get to see this guy play his junior and senior season, and especially a loss for Carver Montgomery and the coaching staff there. We'll see how they go. But it's just this year, if you look at all those guys, we've talked about all of them, I believe, except for Eston Harris, big offensive lineman who went from Beauregard to nearby Auburn. So they're going to talk about kind of getting off on a different tangent, Simone, but talk about who can contend with Thompson in 7A. It may be Auburn again, the runner-up last year. They're going to have a huge offensive line just with those 2 guys, Drew Bobo, Eston Harris, and then you got Braden Joyner as well. So 3 transfers alone on their offensive line. But he's another guy who's a 2022 guy who's not committed. So between he and Curtis, they're probably the top uncommitted guys in the state. We'll be looking to see where they go. And it's just, like I said, you see this every summer. I mean, we see different transfers. We're always surprised sometimes in the first couple of weeks, and we say, oh, that guy's playing there type thing. It just seems like this year there's a lot more high-profile guys that we already knew playing their final year somewhere else, and I think that's an interesting trend.
Yeah. Ultimately, it's not for you and I to really have an opinion on it. It's just to cover it, to point it out, to make note of it. Obviously coaches, players throughout the state voice their opinions, whether it be on social media, AL.com recruiting. That's why we know the show is called what it is. So we got to talk about everything from high school to college and otherwise. But Ben, I want to touch really briefly on your A-list countdown. You do a fantastic job with it. Your top 15 seniors. You said you had to drop Shemar James. Who did you pick up, or is that like a secret? Can you not tell me?
Well, no, I can tell you. So we're currently, as of the recording of this, we're on to number 9. We did number 9 today, and we're doing one each day. Number 1 will be revealed next Wednesday, the 18th, so right before the season starts. So Shemar, we just had to reshuffle. We basically moved a lot of people up, and Caden Story, the Auburn commitment, entered the rankings. Who was he had just kind of been on the verge. He was certainly under consideration, but he had been on the verge of it, and he entered the rankings there. So anyway, check those out. Like I said, we're counting them down 1 a day. a lot of good players left. In fact, we've talked about, just looking at our list, Simone, we've already talked about two of the players on the list that we still have left. So we're doing myself and Just Victory, Mike Perrin are writing those stories. And so take a look at those there on AL.com. And then at the end, we'll kind of review who's committed where and that type thing. And then we'll update, we always like to update those throughout the year. And at the end of the year, we'll reshuffle and see who moved up, maybe who may move down, who had great years and not. But it's been a popular thing. It's something we've done on AL.com for 6 or 8 years now, and people seem to like it. So, and I'll tell you one thing, Simone, just looking at this list, it's a good list. I mean, a lot of Auburn.
Who do we highlight today?
As of Tuesday, we have TJ Dudley, who's the Oregon commit from Montgomery Catholic, linebacker, played in 2 championship games last year. Actually, the state football and the state basketball championship for Montgomery Catholic. So, he is on there today, but you can check out, if you go to AL.com, go to the recruiting page, you can scroll back down and find all the guys that we've highlighted so far.
Yeah. Sweet, Ben. Well, we appreciate your time. Patrick Greenfield behind the scenes running the show for us. Listen, in my opinion, things are only going to pick up from here. You turn into the high school football season, the college football season, guys are constantly making visits. The early signing period comes up on you pretty quick, Ben. And so I got to imagine things are going to get heated yet again when it comes to making decisions. Will we see some guys flip before the actual signing period comes? You never know.
You don't, and I think we'll see some, once the college season starts, we're going to see a lot of these kids taking official visits to actual game days. I mean, we hadn't had that in 2 years, so that could change things. Curtis Perry, who we mentioned earlier, is now at Pike Road, has a top 10, and Auburn and Alabama are both in that top 10, along with a lot of other top schools from around the nation. So we'll be watching him, and I think we'll get some more commitments. Like I said, Amari Kelly next week from Hewitt Trustful will commit, and I think we'll continue to knock these out, and we probably will see some flips before the December signing period.
Yep, we always do. All right, for Ben Thomas, Patrick Greenfield, I'm Simone Eli. Thanks for tuning in today. We'll see y'all next week as the high school football season is set to begin. Can you believe it already? On Thursday, but the big day on Friday, the 20th, all throughout the state. Y'all have a great rest of your Tuesday.